Welcome everybody to the PRI webinar on relationships that we will be talking about today. And to begin with, I have a few figures that I would like to share with you, a few statistics. And welcome everybody to the PRI webinar on relationships that we will be talking about today. And to begin with, I have a few figures that I would like to share with you, a few statistics. 70% of Dutch couples recognize problems in their relationship. Well, I think that's quite a euphemism, because I would rather say that it's 99% that suffers from problems in their relationship, because who could have a relationship without having any problems? Although maybe people that are in complete denial, of course, could experience that. I will be coming back to that. Then, supposedly, according to statistics, 22% is cheating, even though 90% of people say that they disapprove of cheating. Now, again, we have to wonder to which degree these statistics are reliable, because, you know, it might be much higher than that. And in 2016 in Holland, 39,1, so let's say 40% of all marriages ended up in divorce, and it's 5% more than in 2013. It's quite a lot. On average, in Holland, a marriage lasts 14 years only, and every year 70,000 children are told one day that their parents are separating. 1 in 3 of these children experience the separation as very problematic. And here it's good to keep in mind that if parents are able to separate in a way that they can still act as adults, then the separation is not experienced as such a big problem for the children. But in many cases, there, of course, is a lot of fighting going on, a lot of dispute. And in that case, it's very traumatic for the child. So it's good to know, if you're a therapist, of course, and it's primordial to tell your clients, if they are splitting up, that they do it in a way that is as harmonious as possible. And we will be coming back to this also, because someone will be talking about how PRI has helped her to have a good after marriage, as we call it. So it's a relationship after the marriage has ended. Then a few more figures. In Spain, the number of divorces has doubled over the last 10 years. There are now 130,000 every year since 2013. So that's incredible, an incredible increase. In Belgium, we see the highest rates of divorce. 3 out of 4 marriages in Belgium end in a divorce. And then a last thing that I also talk about in my book, Our Love, the book on relationships, is that from our experience with treating couples, only 10% of people in a long-lasting relationship have a satisfying sexual relationship. Imagine, only 10%. And 30% of couples report having no sexual relationship at all anymore. And that's not meaning, you know, maybe once or twice a year. No, that's really like there is no more physical intimacy for years in the relationship. This is something that people are quite ashamed of, and they don't really talk about very often. But it's a big, you know, it's a very big group. Okay, so we can see from these statistics, and of course there are many more, you know, this is just a sample from all the different information you can find on the internet, and also you can find in your own relationship if you look, and also if you are a therapist from working with clients, is that relationships are quite a challenge to people. And I always say the biggest responsibility that we as humans can take on in our lives is having children, because that's a decision that's irreversible. I mean, if you have a child, then, you know, that's for life in principle, so it's a very big responsibility with a lot of influence that we have on our child's development. But the biggest challenge in life, I think, is having a healthy relationship. And why is it such a big challenge? Because, of course, as we all know, it's already quite difficult to feel okay, just as, you know, one person, you yourself, to feel good about your life, to feel good about yourself, to know what you're doing, to know what you want to be doing, to resolve the conflicts, to resolve the tensions. I mean, all these things that are part of daily life. It's not easy to find a solution to that. And so that's just for one person. So it's quite a challenge to have a good life for one person, and then all of a sudden you have two people, and how can these two people that already have such huge challenge for themselves then also, you know, feel good together in the relationship? So you can imagine, it's not one minus one equals zero problems. No, it's more like one plus one adds up to three. You know, it's like a synergy of problems, because of course we have our own problems, and then we have all the influence that we have on the other, all the projections, all the perceptions, all the misunderstandings, all the incompatibilities. All these things make for quite a big challenge. So it's quite normal that relationships show such, you could say, statistics that I just mentioned. Of course, these statistics, to me, they don't really mean that much, because the statistics maybe were very different 50 years ago, but that doesn't really mean that the experience of every individual and, you know, every couple would be so different. It's just that at that time, things were not talked about, emotions were less recognized, they were, you know, repressed, and getting divorced or splitting up was not the thing to do. So I don't think that it's such a dramatic change actually in experience, but I think, of course, that also is there because times are changing. But I think the figures especially show that we are coming out of the closet, things are coming out in the open, we're seeing more and more in what a state we are actually as human beings. I think the mask is falling off. Used to be, how are you? I'm fine. And I think that is a very good thing, actually, that more and more people are showing and seeing that that's not true. It's fake. It's really very fake. And I think if we can see that we are not the only ones suffering, but that other people are suffering from the same thing, it makes it much easier to address our issues and to be honest about our issues, which is, of course, the first step to start to solve them. Now, if I look at relationships, I remember in the first series of PRI, because we, you know, PRI now, you could say it started in 2000, that was the publication date of my first book. So now we're 18 years ahead, so that's, you know, quite some experience that we have been building on. And we used to think that, well, if it comes to healing, you can only heal yourself. And of course, that's something I think is very important for everybody to realize. You cannot heal your partner. We all want to heal our partner because we all think that they are the ones who need the healing, of course. So it's very understandable that many people have that idea, like if only he or she would do this more or less, then things would change. But I think it's very good to take the starting point that you can only heal yourself. So if you want to change anything, fundamentally, you are the one that has to be doing that with yourself. But at that time, we used to think, okay, let's not do relationship therapy because it's installing false hope. It's like thinking that you can heal the relationship, whereas the reality, as we see it from a PRI perspective, is that people need to heal themselves. They are all caught up, taken hostage by defenses, and they need to become aware of that, and then they need to work on their defenses if they so want. So that's how we thought. So we were quite strict in that respect. We did not do relationship therapy. We thought couples therapy. We thought that was false hope. However, as you know, with time, luckily everything changes and develops and deepens. We now have a different take on that. We still think that for healing, you need to heal yourself. But within relationships, PRI can actually be of great help when the two people both want to work on their own process So they acknowledge that they need to heal themselves, and they need to focus on themselves and not on the other person changing, and to focus on yourself, but that they can actually help each other doing that. So how I see it is you can walk hand in hand together on your own path of healing, and then you can help each other if you are asked by the other to help. So the book that I wrote about relationships is based on this concept that you can actually walk this healing road of the relationship together, but doing your individual work. I cannot emphasize that enough. Healing relationships, in my point of view, is not about getting the other to accommodate your needs a little bit more and in return doing a little bit more for your partner. I don't think it's about that. I don't think it's about negotiation. I don't think it's about meeting the other person's needs. I think it's about healing yourself, doing that together. And as such, as you progress on that road, you will become less and less defensive. So you will be more and more actually present in your adult consciousness and present in the present. And from there, you can build your relationship the way you would like to build it. I hope you understand the difference. It's not so much like, oh, we have this problem in our relationship that one person wants to go to bed late and the other wants to go to bed early, and now we are, in a big fight about this. So how can we solve it? Okay, well, instead of, going to bed at 1 in the morning and the other person at 10, let's do the middle. That's, 11 o'clock. I don't think it's like that. It's more like, why do I get so upset that you want to do something else than I want to do? What is that touching in me? Which old pain is that touching in me? And then which defense does that activate in me? A marriage counselor who says, okay, well, it's a simple solution. 1 o'clock, 10 o'clock, let's do 11:30, then everybody's happy. That's getting the worst of both worlds. So the goal in PRI of relationship therapy actually is for both people to work on themselves together, if possible, and then in that way actually to find back the love that was there in the beginning. Because I always say, if the relationship started with, and most relationships, thank God, do start that way, with being in love, and that there is a beautiful energy of love between two people. If that was there in the beginning, I always say you can find that back. And that's really what the goal is of PRI relationship therapy. It's not so much solving problems as it is getting back to that original, as I call it, fountain of love, which was there in the beginning. So it's, this beautiful fountain of love. And then in time, we get one layer of mud over it from problems, and another layer, and another layer, and another layer, and another one. But I've seen it again and again and again and again in the work that I do with couples, that with the right intervention, actually, it's sort of like you just scrape off with 1 or 2 or 3 interventions. You can scrape off, 20 years of layers of mud, and all of a sudden, there is that love again. And the people are so surprised. And I've seen people, my age, 50, middle 50s, 60s, looking at each other again, like, oh my God, I just feel so in love again with this. I see him as the boy he was, or the young man he was when he was 25, and with the twinkles in their eyes and everything. And it's so beautiful to see. So that's really possible, not only to find back that love, but also then to keep that love alive. So that's the goal in PRI relationship therapy. And I already explained a little bit about how, we work with it. Now, if we look at there are many different, of course, problems that can manifest in a relationship. And I think the most important patterns that we can recognize is that either a couple tends to get into fights all the time. So that from a PRI perspective would mean that they are both in false power. So that leads to a daily reality of having many conflicts, irritations, disputes, maybe explosions. or we see that people tend to sort of like start leading parallel lives. And in a way, when people still have this conflict, in a sense it's better, because they are still, in touch with that something is going wrong. Whereas the next phase, it's like giving up, it's like, okay, well, it's not going to work, so I'll just do my stuff and you do your stuff, and we don't even talk about it anymore. That's like from PRI, it's like when both people will go into a denial of needs defense. And of course, that's very sad, because once they're in that phase, they don't even try to find an answer or a solution. They don't even think about going into relationship therapy anymore. They just live with this sad reality, and the physical intimacy will be completely gone. So there we go to these 30% of all couples don't even have any physical relationship anymore. So, and then of course there's also the domination, where one person is mostly in false power and the other person is in primary defense or in false hope. That of course also is a pattern that you can often see. Now, before we go into relationships a little bit deeper, I would like to talk shortly about where does PRI find itself within the field of psychotherapy, different approaches of psychotherapy in general. And I think you can say like this, like there's the psychodynamic approaches on the one hand, and on the other hand, we have more the cognitive behavioral approaches. And of course, there are different kinds, but in general, you could say that the psychodynamic approaches are usually take up quite some time. The whole process takes up a long time. The focus is very deeply going into deep emotions, trying to find the original trauma that is at the base of the problems in the present, getting the insights into what is happening there, and it is very much focused on the past. Then on the other hand, we could say there is more the cognitive behavioral approaches, which don't take up very much time. That's maybe 7 to 10 sessions in general. They're focused on helping someone to learn coping strategies, whereas on the psychodynamic side, you can see that it's more focused on getting insight and seeing what happened in the past. The cognitive behavioral approaches are more focused on helping people to learn how to cope with the difficulties in their daily life. And they're focused, of course, much more on the present. They don't talk about the past so much. Now, PRI, you could say, is sort of like in the middle of these two opposing approaches, you could say. Because in PRI, we focus on the past and we focus on what actually is the cause. Where did it all start? And how does that translate into the present? So we are looking at both past and the present. Therefore, we, of course, look at emotions. We go very deeply into emotions, but looking at cognitions, thoughts, and behavior is just as important. So that's there also. And as far as the time needed is concerned, we will be working in the middle. It's not very short, but it's not taking up much time either. So it's like in the middle in every respect, you could say. Then, last thing that I would like to tell you before I will ask a few people to share with you their experiences of working with PRI in relationships, is that when I wrote my book about relationships, I thought, well, I think many people don't really understand. They know something's not right, but it's very hard to pinpoint exactly what is not right. And I think it's very important, if you want to change anything in your life, no matter what it is, in which area of your life, that you first always really need to understand what exactly is the problem. So from this idea, I then developed a relationship model. So you could say it's a model that can help you to look at relationships and to see what do relationships consist of, which different dimensions of connection are there in a relationship. Because if you then know which dimensions you are well connected together and on which dimensions you are not connected or not very well connected, then you can make sort of like a diagnosis of your own relationship, and then you can start working on that particular dimension to improve that. Now, I do want to say that it's very important that the dimensions that I use to make this model are the dimensions which I consider to be descriptive of a whole relationship, but it can be that certain dimensions are not interesting to certain people. So then, of course, if you are not connected on a certain level and you're not interested in this level because this level doesn't really mean much to you and your partner, then that's not a problem. So I think this is I really would like to get this message across, because it's not about me in this case telling you this is how a good relationship is, because that's very subjective. And I hope you will never let anybody tell you what a good relationship is like, because you and your partner are the only one who can define that for yourself. But I recognize 4 different levels of connection, and it could be that they are all important to you or not. It's up to you and your partner to decide. But for me, they are. First, the connection on the soul level. And the connection on the soul level in a relationship, in my idea, goes beyond what we live in a daily life. It goes beyond cognitions, it goes beyond feelings of, emotions, daily emotions. It's beyond experiences in daily life. It has to do with a basic feeling of deep connection with the other person, no matter really what happens in daily life. So things could be happening in daily life that are very unpleasant, but this connection, if there's a strong connection on soul level, this will always stay there. It will always be there, which doesn't mean that the relationship is going to work out, because it could be that in the everyday life, it's not possible to live in a good way with this other person. But the soul connection sort of is like outside of the realm of our senses and our emotions and our mind. So the mental, emotional body that we all have, the soul connection is beyond that. So that's one thing. And of course, not everybody believes in that, so that's fine, then just throw it out of the window. Then the second level of connection that I write about is the mental emotional connection. So there we see how well are you connected as far as your thoughts are. How do you think about things? Can you share your thoughts and your feelings, your emotions? Can you connect on these levels, on your thoughts? Your thoughts and your feelings, can you actually, when you are with your partner, share these? And it doesn't mean that you have to think and feel the same thing, but it means that you can connect on this level. And for those of you who have read my book, then you will know that one of the most important things, aspects of this dimension to work out is empathy. If there's a strong amount, a large amount of empathy between two people, you will see that the mental emotional connection can develop very well. And when there is a lack of empathy, for whatever reason, either people are angry, or either because in their childhood they didn't really develop a lot of empathy because they were raised in an emotionally very deprived environment. So they didn't develop all the mirror neurons. I think you know what I'm talking about. So it could be for whatever reason, but if there's not so much empathy in the relationship from two sides, then you will see that the mental emotional level of connection can suffer a lot from that. Then there is the third dimension that I talk about, is the physical connection. And the physical connection, of course, is the sexual connection, but it also has to do with, just can you touch each other? Is there physical closeness? And I think that the physical connection is directly connected with the soul connection. If there's a strong soul connection between people, there will be a strong physical connection. And also, for those who don't have such a strong soul connection, or who don't, really relate to this kind of concept, if the mental emotional connection is well developed, there also will be a direct influence on the physical connection. So there's two ways, you could say, to a strong physical connection. after the beginning, because most relationships, of course, in the beginning have a strong physical connection, but then after, you know, either a period from 2 months to 2 years, that fades away, unless if there's a strong soul connection, it will stay, or unless you are able to develop this mental emotional connection, in which emotional empathy is very important. Then these 3 dimensions, so the soul connection, the mental emotional connection, and the physical connection, I see them as like little building blocks, and they sort of like rest on a scale which supports the structure of connection. And this scale is what I call the philosophy of life connection. If the philosophy of life connection is strong, if this scale is strong, these other connections will be able to rest stably on this scale. However, if this scale is not well developed, and if it's cracked or crooked, these other levels of connection, they might, even if they're very strong, they will just fall through. And the relationship might be in danger. The philosophy of life connection, as the word says already, is, are you oriented towards the same things in life? Do you attach importance to the same things in life as your partner? So, do you both have the same idea about the importance of career, of money, of personal development, of spirituality, of raising your children, of spending time together, of how do you eat, how do you live? All these different things, all our norms and values in daily life. Can you share that with your partner? And if you can't, then it's important to know that if the other 3 levels of connection are strong, your relationship can last for a long time because you have these connections. But I always warn couples that recognize this. I say, take care of that philosophy of life dimension, because if you don't, sooner or later, your relationship is going to fall through. So if you and your partner have very different ideas, for example, on the importance of spirituality, on the importance of personal development, on the importance of really addressing the issues in life that need to be addressed, if you have very different ideas about that, then you are in for difficulty on the long run, depending on how strongly you are developed on the other 3 levels. I'm going a little bit quick because we have a lot to do in 2 hours, but anybody who's interested in, you know, reading this, of course you can watch this webinar again, but also you can read it again in my book. I explain all these things and what you can do about it and how you can test it also. You can test your own relationship, and then you can see how well these different levels of connection have been established in your relationship. Okay, so that's a little bit about how in PRI we look at relationships, how what our goal is, and how we try to work towards that goal. So I would really like to ask the first couple, which is Marieke and Chris, who I see sitting here, if they would be willing to share a little bit about how PRI has helped them to walk, you know, their individual road, but then helping each other with that. And what has that done for your relationship? So wonderful that you are here, Marieke and Chris, and really great that you want to share this with us. So I would like to give you the stage.
Okay, thank you. Well, shall I start with a few words? Well, you opened a few minutes ago with in relationships, people try to change the other person because, well, as far as for me, I think I'm right in everyday life, and I like to change Marieke's way of spending money or doing things in the house. And one of the first things I've learned is that, well, it's about changing myself, but also my perception and my way of doing. And I think PRI has helped me to understand what happened, especially in crisis, when people I get excited and, well, we get fights, and I try to explain my opinions to the other person and not being able to step back and reflect on why and how, what I'm doing. So that's I think first major gain from PRI is getting out of the fight in the here and now. And
I think everybody can relate to what you're saying, Chris. Thank you for phrasing it so clearly, because I think I wonder if there's anybody here who will say, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, and can you tell a little bit about how PRI helped you to do that? Because it's a huge step you're talking about.
Well, it's, I think, again and again, repeating, the theory of PRI, so understanding what's happening, and have the possibility to have, a lot of people like you and other therapists, but also Marieke, to, mirror what I'm doing, to reflect on my behavior, and again explaining, well, Chris, is this really so important, so dangerous? Are you really acting like there is something going on so big, or it has something touching you? Is that the reason why you're acting that way? There's a point that you realize sometimes in the moment, sometimes after the moment of fighting or fussing, and it's really in me. It's my perception. It's my pattern of behavior. So that's more or less how it works.
Just a question, Chris, because, of course, both people in a relationship will have issues. I mean, it's not like it's only in one or in the other. So both will have issues. And did you ever clearly realize, like, okay, well, first perspective is she has to change. Then you understand, no, I really have to work on myself and on my perception. And so did you ever really realize that in life, in the end, we really can only work on ourselves? It's impossible. Even if you would be perfect, you cannot heal your partner. It's impossible. They will do it themselves, or they won't do it themselves, depending, on their position. But we are only empowered to really work on ourselves. I think that's also a big thing to start to understand.
Yes, that's true. And it's sometimes difficult to understand, especially when you're in the middle of a crisis, then it's so clear that the other person, I have to change the other person because she is in this case, she is wrong and I'm right. But at the end, and you can find it everywhere in literature, and I don't know, it's all about changing yourself, of course. But that's a difficult, sometimes a difficult idea to really.
We don't really like to take that in, because it means that we have to let go of the idea that the other person is going to meet our needs. Huh? Actually, it's about becoming truly adult in life and saying, okay, I am the only one who could really meet my needs, and I would love to do with this person that I, share my life with, if they want to do that also, but they cannot meet my needs, and I cannot change them or heal them. I can only change and heal myself, and understand that I need to take care and be the owner of my own needs. And then if both people do that, wow, that's fantastic.
And there's, I think, another thing. It's also a change of responsibility. It's not, Marieke is not responsible for how I'm feeling, but it's my own.
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
It's not easy, is it?
No, it's not easy. That's also true, but it helps to think and talk and feel about it. So.
Yeah. So did it work, Chris? Do you feel that you are able to apply this now?
Yes, not all the time, but the biggest gain, I think, is that we are able to make the crisis less big, and even sometimes prevent from getting into a crisis. But when we are in a fight or something, really most of the time, within an hour or within a reasonable amount of time, we are back to the level where we can communicate again, another level, and okay, let's stop this. What is happening to you? What's happening to me? And can talk about that instead of fighting for a few days, or just get into the distance and no talking anymore. That's another strategy I can have to disconnect completely. No, that's a big gain, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be very painful. Okay, so can you tell us anything about, could you quantify it for us? That how much, has this improved, or how many fights did you used to have and now you have, I mean, just to have some, I don't know, it's maybe a difficult question, but to have some idea of the size of the results?
There are two things, I think. The number of fights has reduced, let's say 50-60%, I don't know, but it's quite a lot. And the period of being out of contact, out of the disconnection has shortened a lot. So what I just told you is it's now maybe in an hour, 2 hours, it's over, and we can communicate again and fell in love again. But a few years ago, it could be many days, or just it's just practical communication, but nothing else.
Well, for many days, like like a week.
Well, a short week, I think. Most of the time in the weekends, we had time enough, or it was the price was that high that we really felt we had to do something about it. But a few days, 5 days.
That's fantastic. That's quite a change. Marieke, would you agree with Chris?
Yes.
That's so nice.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So, everything. We lost each other, especially since we had children. And our eldest is now 23, so we lost each other during the whole week. And in the weekends, we needed a lot of time to get connected again. And when we were lucky, it succeeded on Sunday. We started on Friday nights talking, trying to get connected again. Most of the times we succeeded on Sunday. And then on Sunday night or at Monday, we lost each other again. So when I look back, it was really difficult. It touches me also when I realize it. It was so apart. It was so difficult to stay in touch during the week with 3 children and all the work that has to be done and all the things that happened. Not only with ourselves, but with our children too. So it's really difficult, really difficult. And now it's within an hour sometimes.
Yeah. What a difference in your daily life quality, in the tension of silence and of, the war. Stress is very stressful, and then now in just a few hours you can get back and start talking again.
Yeah.
What was the defense pattern? Because you wanted to say something about defense pattern.
Yeah, I am really gevoelig, sensible, sensitive for disconnection. And when I felt or perceived that Chris was a little out of touch, busy with his work or something, I felt stress. So I said something about it. And when I didn't succeed in reaching him, the stress built further. And then I got angry, and I think that resulted in Chris taking further distance. So that was a really difficult pattern we were in. And I was so often kind of hopeless. I didn't know what to do, because I tried to express myself friendly at first. But I did not succeed, and then the stress built up, and then in the end I got angry. Yeah. But it didn't help either, of course.
Then it just got worse. So
it just got worse.
It's like either you don't express yourself and you're lost in your horrible feelings, or you do express yourself and then the horrible feelings are still there, and it doesn't just make things even almost worse, even though it's hardly possible to make them worse.
Exactly. When we started therapy, I didn't know what to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We were not thinking about divorce or something. We were still quarreling, luckily. But I really didn't know what to do.
Yeah. So what was it, Marieke? Can you say what was it that helped you to get out of this? What helped most?
Yeah, I think Chris made it very clear. The realization what happened to the two of us individually. So understanding my own pattern of stress underneath the trying to make contact, the false hope. And then when I did not succeed, getting into the defense of the false power, so getting angry. That was my pattern. And realizing what was underneath this hopeless feeling, which of course related to the child I was, where I could not do anything to reach my parents. And so that feeling, that was belonging to me, that had not anything to do with Chris' distance, or it was something completely different. And that has helped me a lot to feel the pain of the child I was, and the loneliness. And being able to connect again with that feeling in the situation. I felt that he left me somehow, that I could not get in touch. And also understanding what happened to Chris, that somehow he could not get in touch, that there was something else happening than what I perceived. But what was happening, that really helped me a lot, because you can realize it's only your own feeling, but you still don't know what's happening to the other person. So it really helped me a lot to understand and feel what was happening to him.
Yeah. So do I understand correctly, Marieke, if you say that it was really helpful that you understood that what you were projecting onto him, which came from your childhood, namely that your parents were completely blocked and they didn't want to open up to you, that really was not what was happening with Chris. It was not that he didn't want to open up to you. It was that he was running because he was maybe afraid. I don't know what his thing was, but that it was not that perception that you were projecting onto him. That was quite a relief.
Yes, a big relief. Yes, and it opened my heart again, because I could feel what happened to him, and then he was not indifferent.
Yeah, exactly.
I always perceived indifference towards me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then that was not the case.
And what you found out was actually, instead of it being indifference, what was going on?
Well, or he was busy with his work and he had a difficult job to do or something, or he was touched by something I said to him. Because of my angriness, of course. That's really difficult when someone is angry at you. I know it for myself. That's difficult. So, or he was, that kind of things. It was not that he did not want me or that he did not want to be in contact with me, but it was something that touched him.
Yeah. So it's so interesting. So you actually discovered that your projections on him came from your childhood reality, and that the present really is very different.
Yes.
And that opened your heart again, because then you were able to come out of your defense.
Yes.
And see him for what he is, truly.
Yes. And then there's the big plus of the relationship therapy, that you do not only your own work, but you also understand what's happening to the other person.
Yeah.
And that's the extra of working on the relationship.
Yeah. And it's so different from an approach where you would say, okay, let's negotiate. I mean, Chris doesn't want to communicate. He wants to be by himself, behind his computer, or whatever he likes to do, make music. And you like to communicate. So let's meet in the middle.
Yeah.
It really shows how different this approach is from that approach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this, Marieke and Chris. Okay, so then I would like to welcome Lenneke, who is here with me, and her husband, Sander, who is in Holland. And hello, Sander. Welcome. And here is Lenneke. And they would like to also share something about what PRI has done for them in their relationship.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to start, Lenneke.
Yes, well, the story of Chris and Marieke touched me in the way that in the beginning, we had very young children and we happily came in contact. We get to know PRI before I got pregnant. So I think in the essence, PRI helped us to stay in contact, not all the time, and it was a struggle, and it still is, but PRI helped us to stay in contact with myself, with each other in a life where there were young children working together, doing a study. I don't know, I think we would have lost each other on a physical level, on an emotional level, in this turbulence without PRI. And even though I studied psychology, and because there was a lot of fear in me, and a lot of false hope, and a lot of projections I recognized from me, a lot of projections where I had project on Sander, because a lot of times I was afraid for his angerness, and a lot of time I dissociate without knowing. So I think we had a pattern of distance, and he in fear. For example, when I cried, because I didn't get pregnant in the first years, I cried, he took distance because he felt guilty about it, or he thought he did something wrong. And I felt alone and cried more. And so we really get onto distance. And our life was really okay. So on the surface, we had a good life, we had a good job, we had good studies, but in the intimacy, on an emotional level and on a physical level, it would have uithollen. It would have, I don't know the word in English, but it
became empty. It became empty without substance. Really,
yeah.
Without true connection.
In the level underneath.
Yes, in the emotional level.
Yeah, and so that was my personal process of not getting pregnant. There was a hole in me from an old pain, but I didn't know. I couldn't. Before PRI, I couldn't connect to it, and I didn't know. So I didn't know that I lived with a hole in me, because on the surface I was
Everything
okay.
was fine.
No, I was fine. And it was really, for me, it was a really big discovery that what you were writing about is that the emotional and the physical connection, and the soul and the physical connection, are related. Because when we had gone to relation therapy with a sexologe, a sex therapist,
sex therapist. Yeah.
He or she would have emphasized, I think, on doing exercises, exactly what you told, on the coping, doing exercises. But that was not the problem. The problem was on the emotional and emotional intimacy, and how it's interrelate with being also physically intimate. So, yeah, well, I can talk for hours about it, and it touched me deeply, because it's like Marieke and Chris also said, I wouldn't be able to be in contact with myself, not with Sandra, and also not with our two daughters, because we would be in a hurry and
living on the surface.
Living on the surface.
In a superficial life where everything was fine, but everything was missing at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And problems and struggles from time to time, but
Okay. And the most important thing that in your opinion, helped you to give body, actually, give body to your relationship? What was the most important key?
That the fear, I had a lot of fear in my life and a lot of dissociation, that it's not about the other person, in this case, that it's not about Sander. It touches something in me and I disappear in fear or dissociation. And he can get angry, you can get stressed, he can get irritated, he can get, but it's not a real danger in the here and now. I am an adult, so I understand the question very well, because of course I know I am an adult and I'm not in life danger, but my whole system is reacting as if when he touches me or when he talks stressed, my whole system is taking over and being blocked.
Yeah, and now that doesn't happen in that sense anymore?
No, not in that sense.
No?
No. I block and I am in fear, and of course, it can happen all the time. But I know now, I really know and feel now that I don't have to be afraid. And when he wants to be intimate, my body is sometimes, because I have an awful old reality, so my body is reacting, of course. But I really more and more are able to open up that it's not the present which is really dangerous. That he's not going to attack me. He never has touched past my boundaries or did something. No, I know. I want to be intimate, and it's a sign of love. But
Okay. And could you quantify it in any way so that we can feel into how big the change is?
Well, I think I would have been in a relationship without any physical contact for years. I think that would be, I think it could have happened if because of the emptiness. I should perhaps not feel the need to. And I think now there is. Of course, there's a lot to gain. I don't say we are now always in love, and no. But I really am able to I'm really able to open up for him and be emotional and physical intimate on a daily basis. Not that we make love every day, no, but really open up for the contact in myself and for him on a daily basis. And I think for me it's not the fight which recognize me. No, it's more the distance. I easily live in my hole, I reconnect, I disconnect, and I go out of contact. And I do that.
And now you can be open to contact every day, and you have a normal. Well, what is normal? But you have frequent physical contact.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It could be more, perhaps, but it's young children. We have just moved from a new house, so I can open up more. I have work to do, but it's more stromend. It's very more. It's purely. When I'm touched emotionally, my English is blocking, because it really it means a lot to me.
Yeah, because it's such big. It's like the difference between a life that works, where you are in your life and in your relationship together with Sander and your children, versus a life that would be just an empty shell.
Yeah. it would have strengthened my primary defense, my negative thoughts about myself, that it's me, that there's something wrong with me, because that was a very strong feeling. And then I would have go to, okay, I have to do more, I have to do better, and so that was really a problem. So I'm sorry for my English, because my words are not so fluently when I touched emotionally.
I think the essence of what you're saying is coming across very clearly. Yeah. So thank you for sharing. It's very, very beautiful to hear. And Sander, your husband, hello, Sander. Would you be so kind to share with us your perspective on the relationship and how it has been for you?
Sure. Good morning, dear.
Hi.
So it's a little bit strange to talk to each other, you in France and me in Holland in the first place, especially on this intimate topic, of course. But I think you explained it very well. And what I can add to it is that for me was a big insight that our defenses get intertwined. So what I mean is that, so for instance, the example you gave, Lenneke, was that, for instance, you start crying. And for me, that's it gives me a sense of abandonment, because she moves away from me and it feels like, okay, you don't want me anymore, which is strange, of course, because I know now it has nothing to do with her. It has something to do with me. But in the past, I have this Italian short-temperness sometimes, of course. But the thing is that then I got really, I got irritated or things like that. And we got into a fight because Lenneke got scared and I got more abandoned. I felt more abandoned. So then our defenses got more and more intertwined, and then we got really into a fight. So now I understand that it has nothing to do with her. It's my feeling of feeling abandoned. And therefore, normally I would have gone into rage or irritation or something like that. But now I understand, or there's something else going on here. I got into this short-temperedness, and Lenneke gets into this fear state, and then we lose each other. And I think that for me, PRI is not about, it's not about making sure that the fighting will stop or there won't be any discussions or fighting anymore. It's about when they happen, we deal with them in an adequate way. Because then I go, okay, something is going on with me. I get into this defense state. Lenneke can tell or explain when I don't see it, what's happening to her, and then we understand each other, and that really goes fast now. I mean, sometimes in the past I recognized the story of Marieke and Chris. I could settle for days and like, okay, go away. I don't talk to you anymore, something like that. But now it's like, well, in the worst case, 30 minutes max. I hope you agree with me on that. So now we can talk about this, and it's actually an investment in our emotional health, healthiness in our relationship. So the next time this happens, we understand, okay, this is happening with me, and that's happening to you, Lenneke.
Yeah, and Sanne, your empathy was blocked.
Yeah.
So you weren't able to come to me to say sorry or something, and now that has become a normal way.
Yeah.
So there is more gelijkwaardigheid. So equality. That's very important, because there came a pattern that I was getting to him to
every time he would be the first one to make the first move instead of it being both people. Exactly. Crossing the bridge. And Sander, what was it that you think was most helpful for you? What helped to get here?
Well, in a couple of cases, I have seen and understood and felt the difference when it was gone, when we were able to talk about it and the quarrel wasn't there anymore. So, and it's hard work. I mean, let's be honest, it's hard work, and it takes a lot of perseverance and discipline to do it. But when you do it, it actually you have a better quality of life for ourselves, for myself, and for our children as well.
Can you say what it was that really helped you personally?
Well, perhaps it was I had a bit of a fear to look into myself, to look myself in the mirror. Actually, I didn't like that. And what really helped me was that it's okay to look in the mirror and to see what's there now and from the past. And actually, it's okay to do that. But it's easy to say now. I really had a difficult to do that in the past.
Because also maybe there you were afraid to find things that you didn't like. So maybe that's the primary defense.
Yeah.
And now you know, yeah, it's fine. You know, we all have things that we can learn and that we can develop, and nobody's perfect. And it's good to look and actually see what's there and what we can do about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that is usually a defense. Very often the things that we are afraid of seeing turn out to be primary defense, which are actually just defenses against all pain, which means that they are just there to, you know, repress the old pain.
Yeah.
So they're illusions. In the end, we very often find that all these things that we think about ourselves that are negative very often turn out to be illusions. Yeah. They're not even true.
And the other thing, Ingeborg, as well, is that I discovered that, which was kind of strange, because I discovered that I had more fear than I expected. So if you have asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said, no, I don't have fears, and etc., etc. But actually I do. And I also, it's not like really panic, but it's more like a tenseness. And it really helped me to look myself in the eye and to acknowledge that I had this tensionness. And work with it, actually.
Because you didn't want to see that before? Do you mean that?
I didn't have any consciousness on it.
You weren't aware of it. Yeah.
I wasn't aware of it. I was like I think, well, I can't speak for every man, but I think a lot of men have. Well, I don't have fears, so it's like, oh no, I don't have fears. And you go often into a denial of need, but actually I do have a lot of fears, especially in a heightened tenseness.
Yeah.
And when I acknowledged that, it really helped me.
And how did you find that out, that you had this?
I could feel it. Well, it's several things. For instance, our youngest daughter is really sensitive, and she is a big mirror for me. So she tells me sometimes, okay, Daddy, I think you're a little too tense now. And she says it really forceful, really fierce, but also very opening. And I can't resist to that.
See, now it's a sign for it, because when he is in it, he don't recognize it himself. So she's doing.
Really? Yeah.
Because he asked her.
Well, that's great to have that help, huh?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to share, or that you think is important for other people to know?
Yeah. I really like, as a psychologist and as a woman, I like the instruments. We don't have to do constantly. We have to be in therapy. So it's very concrete, and we can do it ourselves. So it's important. It was important for us to have a therapist in the beginning, but now it's really possible with PRI to keep it alive and to keep using it ourselves.
Yeah. Okay. The PRI approach, as always, in whatever issues that we apply to, it's always about empowering people to learn the instruments themselves, so they can apply them themselves, so they don't become dependent on a therapist. In the beginning, you might, like to have the help of a therapist so that you can become skilled in the application of the tools, but then you can actually go and apply them yourself in your daily life. Yeah, that's an important point. Okay, then the last person who would like to share a little bit with us is Tanya, who would like to share how PRI helped her actually to develop a good relationship with her husband after they decided to separate, instead of, going into a horrible relationship with a difficult divorce. Tanya, so could you say something about, because it's so important, especially for the children. It's important, of course, for everybody themselves who unfortunately has to go through a divorce, but it's also very important for the children if they are implied in the situation.
Oh yes, that was mine, and luckily my ex-husband's also main goal, meant to be connected, good for them. And we got divorced, I think, 6 years ago. So my children were at the time 5 and 8, so still very young. And in the beginning, I was so angry. I was thinking about it. I couldn't even look at him. I couldn't talk to him. I was only angry. Or I was angry, or I was longing for him. I was missing him, and it was really strong emotions all the time. So of course it was really hard to deal with the whole situation, the divorce, and being there for the children. But thank God PRI was in my life already, and I really knew I have to deal with this for them. They can't be in a situation where their parents won't talk to them for years and years. And it happens, of course. So what helped me, and I think it was said before, is that I really learned that although, of course, a divorce is a terrible situation in the here and now, he was a big symbol for me, which means that him leaving me touched my old pain so badly. It came up like a volcano. And yeah, it's very easy to think it's his fault. He left me, so that's why I feel so terrible right now. So it took a lot of discipline to really say every time to myself, no, it's not him. He is touching my old pain, and I had to reprocess that, of course. So I did it. It was not easy, of course, but yeah, I really could do it. And now, we have such a good relationship. I'm so astonished about it. It was possible from being not able to look at him, for being so angry. And now, we have a really good relationship. Yesterday, we ate with each other, the 4 of us. He has a new girlfriend, he has a child, and we are together with all the 6 of us now, and I really like it. I love her, I love his child, and if you would have told me this 6 years ago, I would have never believed it. So it's
beautiful story. That's so wonderful and so hopeful to hear that.
Yes, it is. And of course, still, it's not always easy, and sometimes I think I'm angry or I miss him, but every time I can reconnect to myself, and then to my ex-husband.
Yeah, incredible. And he can connect to you, and his girlfriend. Yes. His girlfriend also is fine with the situation, because they are part of it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So for the children, it's it couldn't be better. So she's very lovely to my children and lovely to me, and we really like each other. That's So, but if my heart was closed, I never could have felt that.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you shared this with us, because you know, many times you think about you think about therapy, you think about relation therapy in order to avoid splitting up. But you don't hear so many people talking about, you know, a method that they can apply in order to achieve such a healthy, harmonious, loving situation after the relationship has ended. But sometimes it needs to end.
Yeah, yeah. It ended. We couldn't do anything about that, but this is a true gift.
Yes, it's wonderful for both of you, or all three of you, adults, and then also, of course, for all three children that are involved. Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Tanja, also for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yes, well, impressive stories. Thank you, everybody, for sharing that. And then I would like to take some time to talk to Chris and Marieke to see if we can do a little demonstration on how, you know, from PRI perspective, we work with relationship. So Marieke and Chris, is there an issue that you are struggling with at this moment?
Can I add something? Because you asked earlier on if I would like to add something.
Yeah.
From the story of Lenneke and Sander, and also from Tanja, I would like to add: listen to your children when you have, when you're parents. And we have our daughter, our youngest daughter, once said to us in desperation, "Please get a divorce." And that was for me a wake-up call of what our irritation every night when we were in the kitchen making dinner. It was not a big fight, but every time the irritation between us, what it was doing to her. And while Sander talks about his youngest daughter, who's very sensitive, children are very sensitive, and you can learn a lot from them. And if you take them seriously, they can teach you a lot about what you can do. So that's what I would like to add, that even if they're angry, in their angriness, they have to tell you something.
Very good point. Very good point. Okay, so then back to you and current state of affairs. What is there something that you wanted to talk about today?
Well, we had a fight I think yesterday or the day before, when we were gardening. We were in the garden, and because of the nice weather, we have to give some water to the plants. And well, it ended up in a fight because I criticized the way Marieke was giving water to the plants. Well, I think that's a small but a nice example of how we communicate in those practical things, for instance.
Okay, so if I talk to you first, Chris, what exactly did you see Marieke doing that you thought was not a good idea?
Well, on the surface, she was just walking through the garden in a way, not very gentle to the plants, but well, she was just doing it from my perspective because it has to be done, not with any love or care for the plants. So it was a little bit rude, in my opinion, the way she handled the plants, and that's, I think, why I reacted quite intense.
Okay. So what I hear is that you got angry, which we would then call a false power reaction, which actually is defense, which means that just before the defense was activated, so just before you got angry, you perceive something. You perceive something that is touching all pain, and in this instance, it's very clear. You're perceiving Marieke walking in a way through the garden that was not very gentle, and it was not with love, but it was about it has to be done. Can you explain a little bit more what kind of because this is about something you're seeing, so it's the movements that she's making. What do you see, Chris, or what do you hear, maybe, or?
I saw, and maybe it's difficult to translate in English, but she was. We have some. Tuinslang, how do you call it?
Spraying water?
Yeah, spraying water, maybe. Well,
It's a hose. A tuinslang is a hose.
okay, okay. And there's, she did it with too much water for the plants. So I had a picture for my eyes that there was too much water or too strong, and it will hurt the plants. So that's I think the very picture I remember. It was just too much water for the little plants we have in our garden. So
Okay,
that's the moment.
Yeah.
That was the moment it triggered me to react.
And if you look at Marieke at that moment when she's giving too much water for the little plants, what is she? How is she? What do you see? What do you perceive in her? Is she just standing there, or is she moving, or is she somewhere else? What do you see in her? Can you describe that exactly?
I saw somebody. I saw her with some indifference towards the plants or towards.
But where do you see that, Chris? Well, how do you see? What was it that you perceived that made you think she's indifferent? Can you look at her? How is she standing there? What is she doing or saying or moving or not moving?
Now she's not saying anything. Her eyes are more or less cold. She's moving too much, not appropriate to what she's doing. It's just, I see someone who's not into the gardening, but just doing it because it has to be done. She's not looking at what she's doing, and yes.
Okay, Chris. Okay, so I would like to ask you now to just close your eyes and go back to that moment where you're seeing her standing. If I understood correctly, you see cold eyes and you see that she's moving too much. Maybe it's like sort of impatient movement and she's not looking really at the plants. So try to focus really on your sensory perception, on what are you perceiving. In this case, it's visual, right? It's a visual thing that's coming in. Can you recreate that scene, Chris? Can you see her standing there at that exact spot where she was standing? Yeah.
Yes, I can. I'm in it again, more or less.
Okay, great. Okay, so please look at the details of the situation. Look at the hose. Look at the little plants. Look at all the water that's coming out of the hose, and then focus on Marieke. Focus on that aspect that gives you the most of everything that you're seeing. The aspect that is most giving you the impression that she's actually indifferent and not doing it with love, but she's doing it because it has to be done. It's a chore instead of something that's coming from her heart to take care of these little vulnerable plants. So focus on what it is in that whole image that you have that is really giving you most of all this impression.
I think it's the way she stands, her position, and the way she turns her head. It's not towards me or the plants, but in a different direction.
And how she turned, her body is also turned away?
Yes, more or less. Yes.
Okay. Okay, Chris, so very good. So please stay with that. Stay with that. How both her head and her body are turned away actually from you and from the plants that she is engaged with. And what is it that, if you stay focused on that, what is it actually that you feel that she is saying, if she would say something at this moment? What is she actually saying about how she feels towards those plants? What is the message that she's giving them?
I don't care about you. Yes, she doesn't care about plants, and then don't care about what I find important. In this case, to show some care to the plants.
So the message would be, I don't care about you. I don't care about what's important to you. I don't care how you feel. I don't care about you.
Yes, especially he's hurting plants. That's just me, I think.
I don't care about you. I don't care about hurting you. What do you feel now, Chris, when you say this?
Yeah, I feel, grief, and my body aches a little bit. It's touching me.
Yeah, it's so you can recognize that this is exactly touching on some old repressed pain from the child you were, that is imprinted in your body and in your brain. It's there. And this situation somehow resembled exactly something that you experienced as a child.
Hurting something, I think it's important. Therefore, she's just hurting my feelings as well.
Yeah. So that it's important to you doesn't really matter to her. So it's the message is like, I don't care about you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is something that you know from your PRI work that is part of your childhood pain, Chris?
Yes, I recognize. So it's not difficult to feel that is already inside me of the old pain. I do recognize it.
Yeah. Okay, so if you want, you can open your eyes and then you can see, Chris, what the anger, because you became angry at Marika. Of course, every time that we get angry in PRI, we see this as a defensive reaction that actually is holding away pain, old pain. And so here we have the old pain, actually, which is being touched upon by the present situation, which we call the symbol. And instead of feeling that, oh, this is about my childhood, she's doing so, I'm perceiving something in what she's doing, and that's exactly somehow mirroring something I had to repress as a child. Instead of that whole thing happening, we don't have any conscious about it, and we just go into a defensive reaction. And in this case, it was the false power, the anger.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Chris. So very clear, very precise. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to go and see Marika's side of this situation. Is that okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So Marika, so what's happening to you? You're standing there, you're watering the plants, and then, can you tell us how it was for you?
Yes, I immediately felt criticized.
Because how did you feel before Chris said anything? How were you there? It was nice weather. You had little
yes.
Garden.
I was happy. I was really. I'm connecting. It's very curious. I myself feel I'm connecting more and more with the garden, which was always very kind of difficult for me. And I'm on a way to connecting more and more with plants and flowers, and I'm enjoying it. So I was actually doing something in the garden, which made me happy that I was doing and that I felt connected to.
And can you describe this experience a little bit? How did you feel? I mean, were these little plants that you had just bought, or what? Are they there?
Yes, we bought new plants, and there are flowers in the garden, and yeah, I begin to enjoy the garden, which was always for me a kind of project that was too much, too heavy, and I looked away from it.
Yeah. Okay. So you were there with these little plants that you bought. You've put them in the earth, or you have planted them?
Yes.
Did you plant them? Did Chris plant them?
Yeah, I planted one. Chris planted the most.
Okay. And so you're watering them, and how can you express a little bit your feeling so that we can understand how you were there? You're looking at these plants. You're thinking they're beautiful. You're feeling the nice day. It's great, you're doing this together with him. I don't know. Can you describe a little bit the atmosphere?
Yes. Yeah. And maybe he's right. I was not really in touch with each individual plant, but it was, I was feeling happy by doing it. Yeah, I don't know.
What was nice for you about it? Then forget about Chris, but just
Okay.
be there with your experience. What was nice for you about this moment in your life?
I was happy that I had made the step towards connecting with the garden, which was so difficult for me a long time. Garden was, for me, was always, I only succeeded to keep the house clean at last, and the garden for me was a project, was way too much. And now I'm starting to enjoy the garden, and I am really happy with it. That was what I was.
And how were you connecting, Marie? Can you say something about that? What's happening to you? I mean, what is going through your mind? What are you feeling that actually to you means that you're connecting to the garden? What kind of experience are you feeling?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
What are you experiencing to make you feel that you are connecting? Because you feel happy because you are connecting. But how do you know? I mean, what's happening to you that you are connecting? What's going through? What are you seeing? What are you thinking? What are you smelling? What are you touching? I mean, it's the sensory perception. It's all the senses. What's going through you? Because it's not just a thought like, oh, here I am connecting to the garden. No, you have an experience, and then you have the thought. Look, I'm connecting. Oh, wow, that's great. I'm so happy I can connect. But there's something that sees it. Huh?
It's life. I see the plants are alive.
Okay.
I am connecting to the living energy of the plants. Okay. And I really love that. It makes me happy.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, that's what I mean. So you're looking at the plants and you're seeing the life force and the life energy in them. And then you're really seeing that and you think, oh, I'm connected to that because I really am perceiving it. Oh, wow, that's wonderful. I'm connected. I feel good about it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So then here you are, all happy and enjoying it and connected. And then what happens?
And then Chris comes into the garden and he says, you should put the, what was the word for the tuinslang? Hose. In another position. And there was kind of confusion in me because he was deep inside, he was angry, but he says it just like it's very normal. To say something like that, and this happens often, and then I'm confused because it's not clear that he's very angry at me, because then I would have known immediately that there's something happening to him. But it's kind of a
neutral. It's like a neutral remark.
Yes, and I immediately felt, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong again.
Even if it is neutral, Marika, he's just saying this like, oh, well, just put the hose like in a different. You still
because he's focusing on something that I should do different.
Okay.
He's focusing on what is not going right instead of what is going right.
Okay. So the remark of Chris, you should put the hose in a different position. It's made in a neutral voice. So it's not really what he's saying that is the problem, it is not the way in which he's saying it that is the problem, but it is literally the words. You should put the hose in a different position.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So Marike, I would like to ask you to close your eyes and go back to that moment and really connect to, how you're standing there and how wonderful it feels. And you see these little plants, and you see the whole garden around you, and you feel the life energy, and you're connecting to that, and you love that. And then, can you be there?
Yes.
Okay. And then Chris comes up to you and he says, Marieke, you should put the hose in a different position. And what actually, Marieke, are you hearing him say to you behind this so-called neutral remark? What actually is coming towards you as the real message?
Yeah, it's a very big word that's coming up, but it's, I kind of hear die. I don't know, but, well, I don't know. But,
like, I want to get rid of you, I want you out of my life, I don't want you to exist, I don't want you to be here.
Go away. It's, don't live. It's...
But don't live because what is it that is coming towards you from him in the emotional space? He doesn't want you to be in his life. He doesn't want you to exist in his life.
No, he because he thinks I'm doing it all wrong. I'm not doing the things he wants me to do, and in the way he wants it to be done. So then he doesn't want me.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. So he just wants to get rid of you. So that's the feeling. It's huge. It's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And the ultimate way, of course, to get rid of someone is to have them die. Don't live. But behind that is like I don't want you. And then what did you do, Marieke, when he said that? What was your behavioral reaction?
I immediately got angry. I said, okay, yeah, I don't know, I don't remember what I said, but when I feel it back, I would have liked to throw away the hose.
You'd like to throw away the hose, and
I would have liked to do that. I didn't do it, but I put it off, I think, or I gave it to him, or just I want it. I want to go away myself. I want to make the same move. So okay, I stopped living.
But what did you do? You gave the hose to him, and you.
Yeah, I got angry. I don't know. I remember what I said, but I know I got angry.
And did you go away?
No. In the past I could do that, but I don't do that anymore. But we talked about it. But we discussed. We got a fight or a quarrel or.
Chris, do you remember what Marieke said or did in that moment?
Well, I remember her face. Really, not really discussing, but a really defensive face of, oh, if that's what you think, then I quit, then I'm leaving. That's what I saw, I think. She was not really leaving, but in all her non-verbal communication, it was clear to me, okay, now I stop doing this. I don't want this.
But did she do anything, or did she just go on watering the plants?
No, I think I have explained the way it should have been done, and we discussed it. We discussed what happened.
I finished. I think I finished watering the plants. Yeah, I did that. Yeah, I remember now. I finished watering the plants, but we were in the garden together discussing it under while I did that.
Great. And then you came out of it? What happened?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yes, I'm not sure it's at that moment, but maybe a few minutes or half an hour later, we understood what happened to us, and then we understood that me criticizing Marieke it was a big symbol, and for me, the small plants you were heard, she heard it was a big symbol for me. So we
So the work I just did with you, you already had done yourself.
Not that deep, I think, but we could analyze the symbols in the situation. Yes.
And then how did you feel after that?
Well, for me, it was a great relief that we could detect that there was also something happening with Chris. That's what I talked about before, because normally I always think, oh my God, I'm angry again. Now I'm doing it wrong again. So I perceive I'm doing it wrong, but my reaction is in a defense. That's hurting him. I know. I don't want that, but it happens. And normally I get afterwards always in the primary defense, feeling guilty. Oh my God, what have I done? I'm a monster. And now I was so relieved we could talk about it, and we discovered that we both were hurt. And that made also a very big difference in the I discovered that the attention is normally always going to me, because I did something wrong. I'm in the primary defense. I am withdrawing. But now that I could understand that there was also something that has touched Chris, we could start talking about that. And we have to develop that, but that is a very big difference in the way our relationship is growing.
Exactly. And then in the end, Marieke, after this understanding between you, how did you feel, both of you?
Yeah, I felt relieved. I don't know if my heart was fully open. That took some time, but that happened after a while. It was okay again.
Yeah, and Chris, how did you feel?
Well, I understood what was happening, but the difference with here and now is that there is someone who really is listening to me and really tries to understand what's happening inside of me, why I'm touched. And for me, it's rather difficult to give Marieke the role of really be with me. It's what she said. Most of the time, the emphasis is with her. So now I could feel it, and when it happened, I only could understood it. That's more or less important in my process. That I too many times stop after understanding it, and before I really feel what touches it. So that's the difference between.
And what I understand from it, Chris, is that your perception of Marieke, that she's just standing there, she doesn't even care about these plants, it's actually the contrary. Because she's so happy that she is connecting, and she loves connecting to the garden. Huh?
Yes, that's
it's amazing what a difference in what we perceive sometimes and in what is happening to the person.
Yes.
And with you, of course, I don't think you want Marieke to die or to... I don't think so, as far as I know. And actually, you know, it's amazing how these old things come up, our old programs, and they're translated into perceptions of the present, and then we have all the defenses on top of that, which completely can mess up our life. And how beautiful if you can both find out what's behind it and see the huge difference.
That's true.
It's huge, it's incredible. And it's not about the here and now. It's not like, oh yeah, well, okay, well, next time I will ask you how much water I should give, you know. No, it's not about that. It's about really seeing how you're being touched and how the old pain is right there immediately and how we defend against it, and these defenses wreck our lives. Same story every time. So I just be so great if people can just start to understand how that works, how all of us are in defenses so much, you know, of the time. And the vast results, vast effects. Okay, well, thank you very much. This is a great example. It shows the scope of this mechanism. I see the time is running ahead, and I would like to answer some questions. I'd like to answer some questions. So Tanya, please, do you have the questions that are there?
Yes. Okay. There's the one question. So if you have any questions, now it's the time to ask them by chat. Okay. So the one, it was addressed to Amerika and Chris. So let's see who can answer it. So the question was, after being triggered and stepping in your defense pattern, how do you reconnect with your adult self? So how do you shorten this disconnection time?
How do you shorten it? Well, it's a matter of getting, you know, skilled at doing this process. So the more you do it, the quicker you will start to feel that you're in a defense, which is the first part. I mean, this is the most difficult part. Most people that don't know PRI think, oh yeah, I know about these defenses, you know, teach me how to do the regression. But actually that's a really big misunderstanding. Understanding when you are in a defense is the most difficult step of the whole PRI process, because it demands the discipline to look at yourself and to admit that your behavior is a defense against old pain, instead of saying what we all say. No, this is normal. You know, of course I get angry at my wife because look, she's just crushing these little plants with this huge hose and this huge amount of water. How are they going to survive? Of course I get angry. I have to get angry. Otherwise we have to buy new plants again. That's how, you know, how it usually works. So if we can just start with this thing, like admitting, seeing, recognizing and admitting that we are in a defense. That's the biggest thing. And then of course the rest of the process follows from that. And you just have to do it. It's like anything you want to learn, you got to practice it. And if you practice it, then you will become skilled. And if you become skilled at it, the time between going into defense and getting back into your adult consciousness will become shorter, shorter, and shorter. Chris wants to say something, I think. Yeah.
Yes. To add to that, a few examples from the last hour. Other people can help you. Our daughter, or Sander's daughter, Marieke, if somebody else can invite you to say, well, is it possible that there's now something happening to you that's not to explain the situation, then so other people can help you to find your adult, what's the word, adult consciousness again. Well, if you have an environment with people who will help and can help you, that's helped me.
Chris, I would like to add that that's very true for people that are familiar with this kind of work. But please beware that people that are not familiar with this kind of work in general, like good friends and family and whoever you have around you, they in general will tend, from their empathy and good intentions, they will tend to reinforce your defenses, because they will sympathize and empathize, and they'll say, yeah, of course you need to say something. Of course you felt bad about that. Of course, you know. So turning to other people is a great idea, but only if they know this paradigm, because it is a completely different paradigm than what we live from normally. Okay, any other questions, Tanya?
I understand you can only change yourself. So how do you cope with, for example, a partner who is jealous? Do you help your partner and yourself by avoiding these situations?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Well, I think first of all, you have to start by looking at your own reaction towards the jealousy of your partner. So if your partner is jealous and has absolutely no reason to be jealous, and you will know this yourself, then I think you just look at yourself. How are you reacting? Are you getting scared? Are you wanting to avoid that kind of situation? So there you have defenses. If you're getting scared, you're in the fear defense. If you start to avoid situations, you're also in the fear defense. Or if you become angry, you're in the false power defense. So I would say first work with that. And then once it's possible, see if you can talk to your partner about the behavior. And it depends, you know, if the partner wants to listen, then some changes can be made. But if the partner is completely convinced that the jealousy is, you know, is correct, is asked for because you are really doing something wrong, then I think you have to ask yourself, how do I feel in this situation? And is this a relationship that's feasible for me? Because as I think many people know, jealousy can become quite obsessive. It can even take, you know, paranoid tendencies. It can become complete, you know, like fantasy. And if you get to that level, then of course, that's very different situation you're dealing with. Then if you have a partner who is touched when you are laughing and talking the whole evening at a party with someone of the opposite sex.
Okay, thank you. Yes, the comment is very helpful answer. Thank you. So then there's another question is actually addressed to me. It says, is your ex-husband familiar with PRI? Yes, he is. He didn't apply it himself, but of course, for me, he knows about it. And I think it shows just by doing my work, it affects him also, even though he doesn't do it himself. Marike, you said that sometimes you want connection. How do you manage to ask that in a positive way? Because it's a legitimate need. And how does Chris manage to answer that need?
Yeah, learning to ask it in a positive way is working on your own defense if it's difficult to ask it in a positive way. So of course it's an adult need to have connection, but if it's difficult to ask it in a positive way, then I think I will be in a defense. So that's the work on myself first. But what happened to us was that I started to ask it friendly, and then the need I had was not met in my perception. So then I discovered that my feeling was that however I ask it, if it's friendly, if it's angry, it's not coming, it's never coming. And that's about the old need in me. So before you are able to connect as an adult with another adult, you should get rid of the wish to fulfill your old need, and to place the feelings that comes with that wish where they belong in the past. And then you can talk about your partner and say what's happening. Maybe there's something the matter. So in our case, it's Chris busy with his work because he has sometimes a difficult job, and he has projects, and he has something on his mind. It has nothing to do with me. He wants connection, but not any time, any place, because he also has other things to do. Is that, I hope that's not.
If I may add, Marike, which is, I think, very helpful for people, is to understand that the need for contact is an adult need, but their connection is an adult need. But if it's felt like it's very urgent, like you really now need to connect with your partner because it's been so long and you haven't had the connection and you can't stand being like this anymore, unconnected. If you have these kind of feelings associated with that need, then you know you're talking about an old need from childhood. Because actually in PRI, we will say it's not a need. It's not a need. It is something that you would like to have, of course, in a relationship. But the word need, as adults, we only need a few things. We need a house, shelter. we need some food and some clothes, and we need a little bit of money to get around. And those are the only needs. Those are the only urgent things for an adult to survive on. And then we have other things that we would like to have, of course, understandable. But if it feels like I need that, then you know that you're confusing the adult perspective, in which you don't need it, with the child perspective, in which there was a need, because a child who is not connected to the parents is in danger of death. A child cannot survive without connection to the parents. So this is a whole, you know, this is what I mean by the whole different paradigm from PRI, because if you would talk to friends who are not doing PRI about, you know, I need to connect to my partner and she or he isn't doing this, most people will say, well, wow, that's really not good, because it's a legitimate need, you know, it's a legitimate adult need. And that's where you see it's very different from how in PRI we would look at that. And from there, from looking at it, we will have a very different approach to how you solve the situation. So I hope that's clear for this person who asked the question.
Okay, thank you. How do or can you connect with your partner when he's in a defense, when he doesn't know?
Yeah. Well, I think here also you have to ask yourself, what am I after? Am I wanting to connect? Is that really coming from an adult perspective, or is it coming from a childhood need? Because I think many children have been confronted with parents who were in defenses, let's say an angry parent, and the child would want to solve that situation, so wants to connect to the parent and get through the anger of the parent, or get through the withdrawal from the parent. So there is a very strong need for a child to get through these defensive states that the parent has. And this will then translate into the adult reality, where we really want to connect with our partner who could be in a defense. And I think, again, here, you need to work on yourself and feel, what is it that I really want to connect to? Because if the partner is in a defense, then that person needs to do some work with her or himself. And then only when they're out of the defense can you connect. Unless the partner is already developed along the path of working on him or herself and will say to you, hey, look, you know, I recognize I'm stuck in a defense, please help me. Because I don't, you know, I feel I'm stuck in anger, or I'm stuck in fear, or whatever. I'm stuck in something, and please, can you help me to get through? Then, of course, you can help, but then there is connection already. But if the partner is not at this stage yet, and he doesn't or she doesn't recognize that there is a defense activated, then they will be identified with the defense, and they will think their anger is justified, or that their withdrawal is justified, or that whatever, you know, they're in is justified. And you will just have to let them discover, you know, that something else is going on. And not try to go through it, because it will just make it worse. And so ask yourself, why do I want to connect when she or he is in a defense? What's going on with me? Instead of saying it's a legitimate adult need to want to connect to your partner. Not easy.
Okay, thank you. Well, shall we have a last question?
Yeah.
Okay, that's says Ingeborg, are you saying that adults don't have a need to be loved?
No. I'm saying that there is a difference between what we in PRI call a need is something that you need to survive. I needed to survive. Now, an adult can survive without someone else being connected to them, or someone else loving them in the typical sense of a relationship. Whereas a child cannot survive when he's on his own and there is nobody loving him, which in the situation of a child means nobody taking care of him. So of course, as an adult, I think most people will like to be with someone who loves them, in whatever that really means, because start to think about, what does it mean? My partner really loves me. Oh, really? What is he doing? What is he showing you that is so loving? He's very nice when I'm around him. Okay, and when you want to do something that he doesn't like, is he still very nice to you? So, you know, really we can wonder about what love really means, because it's not so obvious, I think. But the need to be loved is a survival need for a child. And for an adult, it's not, even though, of course, we would like to be in a harmonious, loving relationship. So I think it's important to know the meaning of the word. I hope that's an answer for the person who asked this question.
Okay, well, we've done all the questions and it's 12 o'clock.
No, perfect timing. Okay, so then I would like to thank everybody for being there today so that we could have this interesting webinar. I hope it was interesting, at least for you. I thought it was interesting, but maybe, I don't know, I hope it was interesting for you. Thank you so much to the people who were sharing their experiences. That's wonderful. Thank you everybody for being there today, and I wish you a great day with a lot of positive self-observation and good work on defenses if they are hindering you like most of us. Thank you. See you again, I hope, next time.